What up, Irish Breakdown Nation, IB Nation? What's going on? My name is Vince D'Addario. I am the football analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. And with me, as always, is Brian Driscoll. He's the publisher at irishbreakdown.com. Biggest game of the year. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for anybody. I'm fired up. I am so excited about this game. Brian asked me for my score prediction, so he could do the art and everything earlier. And I have gone back and forth with my score prediction so many times. I finally came up with something, but I'm still not 100% on it. But I'm telling you, we talked about last week being the magnitude of the game being so important and how we're going to find out a lot about this team, et cetera, et cetera. We found out a lot about this team. Against Wisconsin for sure, but we didn't find out everything. And I think that this week we're going to get a lot of questions answered. And this week is going to determine really what kind of season Notre Dame is going to have. I really believe that. If they win this game, I'm not saying it's clear sailing the rest of the way, but this is the toughest opponent on their schedule at the moment. I mean, this is by far, to me, the toughest opponent. If they lose this game, not all is lost, but you've got a lot of ground to make up. And the manner in which you lose this game will make a difference. If it happens to be a blowout and Cincinnati just goes away with this thing, Notre Dame's going to have a ton of ground to make up.
We're not going to have that conversation. I don't see that happening.
I don't either. But
it's like that scene from Talladega Nights. Like, don't you put that evil on Notre Dame, Vince. Don't you put that evil on Notre Dame.
I'm just trying to be honest. But if they lose this game close, they will have less ground to make up, and they can still accomplish a lot of the things that they want to accomplish if it's a close loss. Now, if it's a close win or Notre Dame wins by a lot, we are having a completely different conversation. Either way, I think this is going to be a great game. I do not foresee it being a blowout in either direction. I was thinking last week could have the possibility of being a blowout, right, with Wisconsin. Ended up being that way, but not really the way I thought it was going to go. I don't see that happening this week. I just don't, Brian.
I could see this game being a lot like – this game reminds me a lot like last week's game. The difference is Cincinnati passes more than Wisconsin does. They don't run like Wisconsin does. It's a very similar team. They're better on offense than Wisconsin. There's no doubt about it. They're definitely better on offense. But their defense doesn't quite scare me as much as Wisconsin does at most positions. I think Cincinnati probably has, if we're going to compare the two defenses,
right,
I would argue Cincinnati has the two best individual players. But as a whole, I still feel like Wisconsin has the better defense, and I think Wisconsin's a little bit better coached on defense than Cincinnati is. To me, Vince, I think it's going to be a competitive game. I just feel like this Notre Dame has been trending sort of in the right direction. Everybody talks about how Notre Dame kind of blew Wisconsin out late. I felt like that's what Notre Dame should have been doing the whole game if they weren't pissing away opportunities, missed field goals, open receivers, and all those kind of things. Man, I felt like they were close to blowing the doors off. I feel like this team has gotten closer and closer to that breakout game that we thought might come against Purdue. I just got a weird feeling that this is going to be that game. Look, the last couple of times Notre Dame's had big home games like this, they've came to play. I think Michigan in 2018. I think of last year against Clemson. I think this team is going to come ready to play. We got a couple super chats I want to get to just real quick, Vince.
Let's do that.
Patrick Barnes says, any word, because I know this is on a lot of people's minds, any word on who the starting QB is going to be, Pine or Cone? As of right now, I anticipate it being Jack Cone. As far as I know, he's still practicing. He's going through practices. I think it's going to be a final decision is probably going to get made over the next couple days.
And I don't even know if they will let us know what that final decision is. I would be shocked if that was the case.
We probably won't know until we get out to pregame and they're who's taking the first snaps. I said staps. First snaps. But Patrick, thank you for the super chat and thank you for asking what I know a lot of people are wondering. And I think he put Pine or Cone in that order for a reason.
Yeah.
He wants to try to get that little pine cone thing going. And then Matt Paisley with a super chat, a little love just because. Living and breathing Irish Breakdown. We appreciate you. We appreciate you very much.
That's awesome, Matt. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. But Vince, this is a big game, as you said, man. This is what you come to Notre Dame for, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's this top 10 battle. You know, I'm just telling y'all now, prepare yourself. If Notre Dame wins this game, Cincinnati's not that good. Just prepare yourself for that.
Yeah.
That, well, they were struggling, all that kind of stuff. I'm just
Well, my favorite thing is after Notre Dame did what they did to Wisconsin, Wisconsin's not that good, blah, blah, blah. But now they're favored against Michigan this week.
Right.
So
Vegas loves them some Wisconsin. I don't get it, man. I don't get. I mean, I guess I kind of understand that they aren't home, but they were also at home against Penn State. But whatever. I mean, Vegas loves them some Badgers.
Yes, they do, man.
Love them some Badgers.
I think that's great. But they don't like Notre Dame because they're a dog for the second week in a row.
I mean, Notre Dame hasn't lost. They've won 26 straight home games. The only home game they've lost since the post-2016 makeover was a 1-point game at home to Georgia, the eventual national runners-up. I have a hard time seeing them as a home underdog to a team like Cincinnati. Look, Cincinnati's a good football team.
Sure.
But
I've said it. They're the best team on the schedule right now.
Yeah, the way teams are playing, yeah, no question. No question. Yeah. I mean, you look at the USC's they just got pounded at home by Oregon State. USC, I mean, North Carolina, I know you love it. North Carolina. I was mean to you on Monday, Vince. I brought up the USC thing at the very end when you couldn't talk about it because you had to leave for class. That was mean because I know how much you wanted to talk about that.
Dude, I still have an old shirt from when I was a kid. It was a Notre Dame USC shirt. It had 10 years, and I think it was mostly the 90s, right? It said a decade of dominance, and it was the 10 years in a row that Notre Dame beat USC and had all the game scores on it. That was like my favorite shirt to wear around during football season. I hate USC. I hate everything about them. They're a rival for a reason. All right. It's a great school. I get all that. But when it comes to football, I love it when they're embarrassed. So it just
absolutely.
is. Yep.
We're just going to dive right into our matchups, our keys to the game, and then give our prediction here. But I felt like as we kind of get into the matchups of this game, Vince, that this super chat from Griff was appropriate.
Yes,
We're learning about regression today in my statistics class. Crazy that the Notre Dame offensive line under Jeff Quinn is part of the curriculum.
Wow.
I kind of feel like he's being sarcastic there. I don't think he's being serious. I'd be curious
I hope
to know if
I would
he is,
give
but
a lot of props to the professor.
I would actually have, yes, true, but I would have even more respect for Griff if they're actually not talking about that because that's hilarious. The props for Griff go away and they go to the professor if this really happened. So awesome. That's some stuff I can see you doing in your class, like if you're doing like a strategy class. So
no question.
Appreciate the super chat though, Griff. But Vince, let's dive into the matchups of this game. I think this is the thing that, because of my feeling that since this is a lot like I view Notre Dame games in the past, like against Alabama and not 2012, but like not comparing to 2012 because there was a bigger gap. But I'm making the point that in that game, I've made this point against Clemson in 2018. I've made the point that I think Notre Dame 1-5 can hang with anybody. The thing that separated Notre Dame in the past is that 6 through 20, they weren't on the same level as the elite teams.
Yeah.
Because you think of that 2012 team, you had Tyler Eifert, you had Stephon Tuitt, Lewis Nix, Zach Martin, Chris Watt. You had some individual players that were just special. But Alabama had like 13 of those guys. Notre Dame had like 5. Right. Oh, 6, Manti. This is kind of how I feel about this matchup. I feel like Cincinnati with their top couple guys with Myjai Sanders and Ahmed Gardner and even Desmond Ridder to a degree, just from a physical tool standpoint, he's really good. There's some individual players that you're like, man, these guys are really good. But then you look at it from, 5 through 20 and you're like, okay, Notre Dame has like every advantage there. And so that's what makes some of these individual matchups of the good on good so important to this game.
No question.
So I do want to grab this real quick too, Vince. Huge super chat from Lucas Chapman, man. Appreciate you, Lucas.
Thank you
very much. I wonder if Lucas is in the brigade of people who made a ton of money off Vegas last week. I can't tell you how many Notre Dame fans I know that are just like had such great weeks of just happiness because of they bet on Notre Dame.
I hope it continues. I'm hoping it continues.
I mean, just
as they do in my daughter's class. Dumbledore clap. There you
Notre
go.
Dame Nation got a lot richer last week thanks to Vegas.
No doubt about it.
So especially, well, I don't know about Notre Dame Nation. Irish Breakdown Nation, IB Nation, who listened to our shows for months saying Wisconsin ain't that good, made a lot of money. I don't know about the rest of Notre Dame Nation. I know that IB Nation.
That's great.
But Lucas says, I just can't see how Cincinnati's offense will stand up against Notre Dame's defense. I can realistically see a very similar Notre Dame defensive recruiting effort in this game. I truly believe there's more wiggle room for Notre Dame's offense to actually run the ball. Cincinnati's QB's talking smack. LOL. Yeah, that was a
dumb move.
Yeah.
Talk about poking the bear, man.
Yeah. So let's dive into the first part of his matchup though, Vince. I want to start with the Cincinnati offense and the Notre Dame defense. And Kenny Moore is like, Lucas is bringing it today. Right?
I love it.
Yes. Yeah. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. So this is the matchup to me that is, we talked about this yesterday, Vince. You weren't with us. And that's why I want to start off with this, because I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about this matchup because you didn't get to yesterday. This is the good on good matchup of this game, in my opinion. Cincinnati's got a really good offense. At least they have so far.
Sure.
Notre Dame's got a really good defense. Notre Dame's trending in a little different direction, whereas Cincinnati's kind of regressed. Their offense has kind of looked a little bit like Notre Dame's, really good in the opener. Okay, game 2. By game 3, the 38 points is very misleading that they scored against Indiana. It's kind of like the 41 points that Notre Dame scored against Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So let's begin, Vince, with a couple. What are the two, when you look at this matchup and you break down the film? I know you have. I know you've looked at the film from this year and last year. When you look at this matchup, what's the first two matchups that you look at and say, these two matchups I feel the most confident in when it comes to Notre Dame being successful, when it comes to the Notre Dame defense against the Cincinnati offense?
Well, look, I'm gonna, I guess this is kind of tooting my own horn, but I'm doubling down on it here. I'm going with Cam Hart versus whoever he's lined up against. I really feel like Cam Hart has taken a step in the right direction continuously each game, right? But he just hit a crescendo, obviously, last week against Wisconsin. I thought his anticipation of those routes was impressive. It wasn't just an athletic move to intercept those balls. It was a knowledge move, right? Like he read it, he stepped in, he made those plays. I think he's physical in the run game. I think he's getting better and better in the pass game. I love what Cam Hart's doing. I think we've just, scratched the surface for who he can be in this defensive backfield. I think obviously Kyle Hamilton is the leader back there, but Kyle Hamilton's not going to be there next year. So who's going to be that leader moving forward? I think number 5 has a great shot at being that guy. And I love what he's doing. And so I'm going to double down on Cam Hart, and I'm going to say I'm confident at whoever he's matched up against, he's going to have some success.
And that's going to be at different guys at different times. It's going to be Tyler Scott. And this is why
that's why I didn't go
right.
Yeah.
It's going to be Tyler Scott. It's going to be Jadon Thomas. It's going to be Michael Young. It may be Trey Tucker at times. It's going to be different guys at different times. And I agree, because he's, especially now that he's playing the field. And I'll tell you, it's kind of funny. I know football, right? I mean, this is what I do, right?
Right.
And if you'd have told me this summer, hey, what do you think about moving Cam Hart to field corner? I'd be like, nah, no.
Right.
I just thought of why he's such the perfect boundary corner. But then I'm like, okay, so this is, as I said earlier this week, this is why Marcus Freeman got paid a snot load of money to not go to LSU. Because I wouldn't have thought this would have worked.
Right.
But if you look at it, the first 2 games he's playing boundary, he has 0 pass breakups, 0 passes defensed. Part of it is because they're not thrown at him.
Right.
And then they move him to the field corner, and the first 2 games he has 4 passes defensed, 2 breakups and 2 picks. One of his breakups leads to a DJ Brown interception. So 3 of his 4 breakups in the last 2 games have led to interceptions, which is I want to share an amazing stat. So you want to talk about how good this defense has been, and it's the game, the last quarter and a half against Florida State has really masked how good this defense has been this season, in my opinion. And the 2 big plays against Toledo. Notre Dame has 3 games, 3 of their 4 games this year, they've had at least 2 interceptions. The last time Notre Dame had at least 3 interceptions in a game for an entire season was 2014. They did it once last year. Like they have not had 3 games with multiple picks in since 2014.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really impressive number. And then when you look at the picks, they're not fluky. They're guys making plays. They're not. When I say fluky, it's like ball bounces off of a
Right.
receiver's hands and goes up. You know what I mean? And so those things are fluky plays. Not fluky is when you break up a pass and it goes up and your guy picks it off. That's you
It
making
goes off the hands of a receiver.
right.
Or yeah, I know what you're
Right.
saying. Absolutely.
Those things tend to be fluky. Notre Dame doesn't have 9 fluky interceptions this year. A couple of them are just phenomenal plays by Kyle Hamilton in the opener. Right. Tip passes and things like that. There was the Kyle Hamilton's third pick was that tip pass, but that was Jack Kaiser making a play. It's Cam Hart batting down a pass, breaking up a pass that DJ Brown picks off. That's what's really made this defensive performance so impressive. And to me, that's what a lot of it is kind of, you look at what they've done since Cam Hart's taken over. That's, to me, it's like, that's the kind of coaching moves that you're like, okay, that's why you are why you are who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, looking at it just from our perspective, right? And you look at what makes a good boundary corner: physicality, size, length. Cam Hart has all of those things, right? And so it was puzzling to me at first, but then it's like, okay, you're going to put your perceived best corner in a position to make more plays. And that's exactly what's happened. I would have never guessed it, and you're right. It's why he's going to the bank a few more often, more often than you and I are, because he can make those decisions and he sees what his guys can do. He put Cam Hart in a position to make plays, and he has rewarded Marcus Freeman with that decision. And right. Coach Mickens, I'm sure it was a collaboration, right? But those guys made a tremendous decision. It made a lot of sense now that we see what has happened, and I think it's working out great. And so we'll see how it plays out, obviously, over the next, 8 games, hopefully 10, right? But it's been a great move so far, and I love me some Cam Hart, man. So like I said, I'm doubling down on this young man.
And to your point, back to this specific matchup, I think Cam Hart's important because they're going to throw bubbles, they're going to throw screens, they're going to throw a quick game, they're going to attack you've got when you've got a big arm quarterback, and when you've got a big arm quarterback like Desmond Ridder, you can make throws to the field that a lot of quarterbacks can't or won't make.
Sure.
And so that puts even more stress on Cam Hart in this game, and it puts more emphasis on why he needs to step up and have a big game, to your point. Is there another matchup that you look at, Vince, in this and say, boy, I feel really good about Notre Dame being able to control this matchup, and it's going to have an impact on the game?
Yeah, I want to see the defensive line continue with what they were doing in the Wisconsin game, continue being dominant. So my matchup is the defensive line versus the offensive line, because as with any offense, if you can get into the backfield and make plays like they were making against Wisconsin, it messes everything up, right? And, when we do our other matchup, I'll get into more specifics, but if they can disrupt things in the backfield like they did against Wisconsin, because we've seen it done, we know it can happen. If they can continue that, they're going to have so much success. I mean, it will breed success to the rest of the defense, just like it did against Wisconsin. Linebackers are going to be able to flow. Corners are going to be able to do their thing because they're not going to have to cover as long. Safeties are going to be able to make plays. All of those different things all starts with the front. And if the front can be successful against this, frankly, I'll say it, an undermanned offensive line for Cincinnati, Notre Dame has better players. So if they can assert their dominance up front, it's going to be a nice long day for this offense for Cincinnati.
I mean, I think you can just put Jason Ademiole against name a guard
right.
For whoever they're going to play as a key matchup for the rest of the season.
No question.
Look, this Vince is an offensive coach. I felt this for years. It's even more so now in the modern game because of how quick the ball comes out so much. If you get beat, if you win up the middle, whoever wins up the middle is going to win the battle of the lines.
And we're going to talk about that probably when we talk about the other matchups too. Yeah.
And so that's where Notre Dame has had so much success. And there was a comment earlier, Vince, about about I want to find it here real quick about Howard Cross and essentially, if he has another big game, do you talk about maybe benching him, Kurt Hinish for Howard Cross? And I want to say no, you don't do that. That just speaks to how good this team is.
Right.
When
And
one
you
guy
can
goes
adjust some
down,
reps
right,
and things like that, but you're not going to
right.
bench
Here we
Kurt
go.
Hinish.
Here we go. Coach Steve, Howard Cross balls out again this weekend. Do you think he's earned the right to start over Hinish? No, because Kurt Hinish has played pretty good football as well. I just think what it does to me, Sam, as opposed to focusing on a oh, well, this guy should start. It's just, look, it doesn't matter who Notre Dame puts in the game up the middle. They've played well so far. That has to continue this week.
Right.
It doesn't always guarantee, current success doesn't always guarantee future success. You got to bring it. You got to have that same mentality, that same technique, that same focus, that same attention to detail every week. If they bring that this week, then I think they'll once again control the inside. And that, to me, is what throws off the entire timing of what Cincinnati wants to do.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
To kind of go back to that comment, what I will say is the defensive line is different than a lot of positions, right? Just because one guy starts doesn't necessarily, I mean, yeah, it's an honor to start. Obviously, look, Hinish is a captain. He's going to start, right? Unless he's injured or he does something just absolutely atrocious for multiple games in a row, he's your starter. Now,
which he hasn't done.
Exactly. Right. And you can adjust reps, right? You can bring Howard Cross in for more reps. You could dial down Kurt Hinish's reps if that is something that the coaching staff
which I
sees.
would do this week if he is eligible to play. I would not. He's dealing with a concussion. I would say, hey, whatever your reps are, we're taking 10 of them off.
Right. And if
not
Howard
15,
Cross is still doing his thing,
and Jacob Lacey,
you're great.
Jacob Lacey,
yeah,
and Jacob Lacey.
You divvy those up between those guys, and you're good to go.
Because you're going to need Kurt Hinish healthy in November, and especially in the postseason.
At the very least, from a depth standpoint, at the very least, you need Kurt Hinish.
The only way I wouldn't start Kurt in this game is if I sat down and had a talk with Kurt and said, hey, listen, we got to limit your reps, but we also don't want you not available for the fourth quarter. If we don't start you at the beginning of this game, then your rep number doesn't kick in until series 2 or 3. Then that's going to help ensure us that we have you for the fourth quarter. If you blow them out, which I'm just making a point. If you blow them out, then he doesn't have to play the fourth quarter. Then he just played 10 reps and he's getting his legs back and he's getting healthier and healthier when you're talking about that concussion injury. So that's the only way I would do it. I mean, I would consider, but that just speaks to the depth that you have, that you can look at a fifth-year captain who's going on really his fourth year as a starter, because he started as a sophomore. Yeah. He's one of those few guys. He's that whatever they call the super senior, right? He played 4 full seasons at Notre Dame. He's been a part of the rotation for 4 years, but COVID allowed him to come back. So technically he's a 4-year starter, and he's played good football last year, played good football. But there's one game we watched, was it Toledo or Purdue, where I just saw him a couple times and he got knocked off. Then you go back and break down the film and you're like, oh, actually he played pretty well, except for a couple plays, which everybody has a couple plays. So he's been pretty good, but Vince, to your matchup point, that's just what speaks to the importance of this matchup. That's what makes this D-line so good, is you can take Kurt Hinish off the field and still be as good. You can put your quote unquote third string nose tackle, Jacob Lacey, in the game against Wisconsin on 4th and 1 and get a stop because of him.
The depth is just, I know we've hammered it home many, many times, but the depth is so good up front, and that's what's going to carry this team. It just,
Aiden Keanu Anna and Riley and Gabriel Rubio are playing 20 snaps a game in 2017.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Where they are now. As a true freshman, Gabriel Rubio would have played 20 plus snaps a game. Aiden Keanu Anna, as a redshirt freshman in 2017, would have played a ton of snaps.
They are that good.
It just speaks volume. Yeah. Exactly. They're not playing because that's just how loaded Notre Dame is up front. I mean, I wrote an article about this earlier at Irish Breakdown, but I talked about how Mike Elson has just created a D-line factory. I mean, think about this. The 2018 defensive line, the 2019 defensive line had 5 players in its rotation on the defensive end, that are now playing in the National Football League. 4 of them were drafted. Jameer Jones was not drafted. He started for the Steelers last week. You're going to lose that, and 2 years later, you're better at defensive end and defensive line than you were with that group. I mean, it just, because the D tackles that were on that team are still here.
Yeah.
Right. So that's,
good point.
I mean, it was Myron, it was Kurt, it was Adam Miola, it was Jacob Lacey in 2019. That was the depth chart at D tackle. They're still all here. They've only lost the DNs. So it just speaks to just the what he's been able to do there,
Yeah.
Vince. But we need to see, this is the game where it's look, your best parts of your team have to be at their best when you play in the biggest games.
No doubt.
Right?
Yep.
And the D line, as we've been saying all summer, that is going to be the strength of the team. They have to bring it Saturday if Notre Dame is going to win. And I think that they are.
All right. Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say it's your turn, but what do you got?
Well, I'm kind of with you on those matchups.
Okay.
I think Notre Dame's got to be able to kind of win on the perimeter. I was going to add Clarence Lewis into this too. I'm actually a little bit more concerned about that matchup against Alec Pierce than I am about the field matchup.
Sure.
I think if Clarence can have a good game this week and slow down Alec Pierce into the boundary, I think that's going to be big for Notre Dame. And I'm actually confident he's going to bounce back after getting beat a few times last week.
Well,
I feel
he's
like
going to have to realize he's going to get targeted.
And he's got that New Jersey attitude. I coached a lot of New Jersey kids when I was at Muhlenberg College. And one thing I learned about New Jersey kids is they got a little bit of a, and look, I've coached all kids from all over the country.
They're salty.
Jersey kids, well, they're salty, but they really don't like getting beat and embarrassed. Yeah. And they take that crap real personal. And I have a feeling Clarence is going to be a little bit extra fired up based on how he played last week. So that's a matchup. And then I was going to go my other one was Adamiola. I talked about that. Adamiola against whoever he's lined up against.
Right.
He's got to play like an All-American again, right? He had the big game against Wisconsin. He's getting interviewed by the media. He's got to keep that hunger. And I think he will.
Yeah.
But that's a big matchup for Notre Dame as well. What's the matchup for you, Vince, that is most concerning for you?
You're going to laugh because I'm not sure how specific it is, but it's Desmond Ridder versus the defense because he impacts all three levels of your defense, right? The defensive line has to contain him. You don't want him getting outside, making plays. If he does get outside, the linebackers need to contain him. And if he's going to be in the pocket and he's going to be throwing the ball, the secondary needs to do their thing. So I know it's kind of vague, but
I kind of like it, Vince. I say, Desmond Ridder versus Marcus Freeman, right? Or something.
Okay.
Because to your point, though, if Desmond Ridder goes off, this is going to be a tough game.
Absolutely. He's the one player that I'm concerned about on this offense.
To keep him from going off, you got to be good on all three levels. I think you nailed it. I think that's and it's a concerning matchup. Why? Because he's really talented.
Yeah.
And he's got a little extra fuel, too, because he now knows I got to back up what I said.
Yeah, exactly. He's not – look – would I have advised him to say those things? No. But he is good enough that he could back it up if he plays really, really well. I mean, so he's obviously confident enough to do that, and he's not dumb enough to say it if he doesn't think he can make that happen.
Or if he's not confident that he's going to go in himself. Right. That's why those other matchups we talked about are so important. You win up front, you funnel him back inside, because here's the thing. If you win on the perimeter, it means he's got to go to his reads over the middle. Who's over the middle?
Kyle Hamilton and those linebackers who have been playing exceptionally well.
That's why it's important to win on the perimeter to get there. The matchup for me is the tackles on the ends. And last week we didn't really see the tackles have the success the ends have the success I thought they should have had against the Wisconsin tackles. The Cincinnati tackles are similar. They're not super athletic, but they're big and long and fundamentally sound.
Sure.
The Notre Dame defensive ends did not have a great pass rush performance last week. Now, I wonder if part of that is because they were purposely not trying to win on the edge, which could very well be the case. It could have very well been the case of, hey, I want you to run through this guy because I care more about them running at you than you getting around the edge and sacking the quarterback.
Sure.
That it could have very well been the game plan to not have them be more concerned with setting the edge and that kind of stuff.
Then that's the key right there, setting the edge. You don't want that running back to bounce to the outside
or to cut underneath you because you went too wide.
Exactly. So yeah, I could see that being a possibility for sure.
Now this week you got to rush the quarterback. You got to get after the quarterback, and you've got to do it in a disciplined fashion. They need to be at their best. Isaiah Foskey needs to have a money game, right? Like this is a top 10 matchup. This is the game that NFL scouts are going to be watching him. Myron's got to continue to do what he's done. I want to see Jordan Patelho be used more this week.
Sure.
Are we going to see Justin Adamilola? Yeah, Justin Adamiola's had some big moments. Like we didn't see them a lot as pass rushers, but again, part of me feels like that was by design.
That's interesting. Yeah,
because you look, you stop that. We said it last week. You stop Wisconsin's run game, you beat Wisconsin.
Yes,
and that absolutely is how it played out. And then once Wisconsin had to throw in the fourth quarter, Notre Dame, that's what we said last week. They can't play from behind, and they didn't. So it would actually make sense. I mean, they were not super disruptive up front last week. They were just, meaning like getting 5 yards into the backfield and blowing up the court and all that kind of stuff. It was a very disciplined but aggressive game plan that was a little different than what we've seen. That's called good coaching. You know what I mean? Not just we're going to do what we do. No, we're going to do what we need to do to dominate and win.
Yes.
This week, I think that means turning the ends loose a little bit, and I think we're going to see more of that. But if they do, they've got to be successful, and that's why if they don't, this could get this. So that's why it's a little bit troubling for me. The matchup concerns me a little bit more than others.
Okay.
Before we go to the other one, Vince, we have a couple super chats I want to get to. Everybody's lining up with those. We appreciate those very much. Double D 515. I'm heading up to South Bend tonight with my dad. It will be my first game in Notre Dame Stadium. Super pumped for this matchup. Go Irish. That is awesome.
Yep.
And if you're coming up tonight,
game, I believe.
Yeah, if you're coming up tonight, that means you got tomorrow to kind of attend stuff. So definitely check out that article that we put up. I'm going to update that later tonight with the specifics of the Wisconsin game. But we have that Ultimate Fan Experience article at Irish Breakdown that talks about all the different things that you can do on campus.
There's a ton of stuff
the weekend of the game. So definitely check that out. But hey, safe travels. And boy, this is you picked a heck of a game to be your first game with your dad. That is awesome.
No doubt.
A top 10 matchup. That is great. That is great. So safe travels and enjoy that very, very much, Double D. Got a couple more up here. I think Ethan's the next one. I just want to make sure I didn't miss one before then. Ethan Wickman says, if the O-line plays okay, Notre Dame 34, Cincinnati 20. If the O-line continues to struggle, he thinks Cincinnati win 24-23. I'll be loud in the stands on Saturday. Desmond Ritter, welcome to Loud Town.
I hope you're right.
I love it. I love it.
You're right. Notre Dame needs to bring the sauce, man, in the stands.
And we'll get into the second part of his prediction. I think the first part of his prediction is spot on. And you'll see that as we get closer to the prediction time. I feel if the offensive line just plays solid football, that they'll win convincingly. Think about it. Clemson, with all their great players and the great defense they have, has played about as bad as Notre Dame on the offensive line with their 5-star quarterback and all that other kind of stuff. And they're 2-2 in a goal line stand against Georgia Tech away from possibly going into overtime to be 1-3. Notre Dame is 4-0, right? And their last 2 wins have been somewhat convincing over Big Ten teams. So I think people are a lot of folks, not you all, because you all get it. And that's why you're here. There's a lot of people that don't quite realize how good this team is everywhere else.
I agree.
And that's why we say if the offensive line is just solid, this team is going to be hard to beat. Very, very hard to beat.
Got a couple 5 try-hards, baby.
Yes, that's it. That's it. What did we said? Body on a body. That's it. Play hard and get a body on a body. That's all we need. Man. Doug Lepachin, Buckner and Pine takes all first-team reps. Pine starts. I will be at the game. How can I introduce you to my 90-year-old dad? Love the show. Go Irish.
92. That's impressive.
Vince will be at the game, so hit Vince up on Twitter.
I'll do my best.
Do your just give me real quick. Give me your.
It's easy. It's at Coach D'Addario.
Okay,
it's easy at Coach D'Addario.
So hit Vince up. I will not be at the game, so
I will try. I'll be getting there pretty close to kickoff, but I will be there for sure.
Yeah, we've had some things come up this week in the Driscoll household that are going to make me have to be at home this week. But so unfortunately, I will not be there. And I'm kind of bummed about that. Like the one game I can't go to is top 10 matchup, but it is what it is. But thank you for the super chat, Doug. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you, Doug.
And then John A1 with the happy Thursday IB.
We're almost there.
John.
We're almost there.
Yep, no question. So Vince, let's get into the Notre Dame offense against the Cincinnati defense matchups, because these ones, this game to me, this is the Notre Dame defense is about everybody do your job. That's what was so great about last week's performance. It was just 11 dudes doing their job at a very high level. And when one guy maybe didn't do his job because the other 10 were doing theirs so well, it masked it. And there weren't many where a guy wasn't doing his job. There weren't many plays. Offensively this week is going to be more and more and more about dudes being dudes, right? Like that Steve Adazio thing, right? The Notre Dame dudes have to step up, right? They need Kyron Williams to have a big game. They need Braden Lindsey, Kevin Austin, Chris Tyree, and I would say at the top of my list, Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
They need those guys to step up and play well and make those individual plays, because I don't know if they're good enough, even if the line plays okay, to consistently move the ball down the field, although they did it a little bit last week against Wisconsin, more than I thought they would. They had a couple sustained drives, like 3 sustained drives against Wisconsin that I didn't think they were capable of doing 3 times. First time they miss a field goal, right? Second time I think did they miss a field goal or they got a touchdown or made a field goal? I forget which one it was. And then the third time was when they were up 17-13, forced a punt. Drew Pine leads them down on about a 7-play drive.
Yeah.
Converts the third down to Kevin Austin, and they go down and score. So, and again, I don't think Cincinnati's quite as good as Wisconsin is on defense. They're somewhat close, but they're not quite as good. So, but you're just not going to make a living against this kind of team with 9 8-play drives for touchdowns. You're going to have to make big plays, and I especially think that's true early. You've got to make big plays early, and I think that falls on who are your dudes. It's up. Kyron's got to make some plays, right? And he's got to avoid the negatives. That's the big thing he's got to do this week, avoid the negatives. Michael Mayer's got to step up and make plays, Vince. Braden Lindsey has to find, and I have an article I think just published about 5 minutes ago. I had it set to go up, I think, at 1 o'clock. Braden Lindsey's had some chances to go out and make some plays this year, and sometimes it's not his fault. Balls don't come or they're off base, but other times he's had chances and he hasn't made them. Braden Lindsey's got to step up this week and make those plays. He's a very important key to this. So to me, my number one key on offense and my number one matchup, so that means my number one matchup is those guys right there. Yep. It's Michael Mayer against the Michael Mayer and Kyron Williams against the Cincinnati linebackers.
Dudes being
and
dudes.
Safeties. And then Braden Lindsey against the field corners. That right there, that is it. It's it.
Okay.
Apparently Tom Balork thinks that I make a lot more money than I actually do, because Tom said IB needs to print out 80,000 green IB and Notre Dame shirts to go. I mean, y'all have been very gracious with your super chats, but
not that gracious. No. Just kidding. I think that'd be. Are you kidding me to see a full stadium with IB gear on? I'm down with that. I am down with that.
That'd be awesome.
But I agree with your getting started early sentiment, because, and look, this isn't a bang on anybody that's in our chat or anybody that's going to be at the game that we know, because we know that you're going to be there cheering and everything. But Notre Dame Stadium, in general, is filled with some fickle fans, and if things don't go well for Notre Dame early, I worry about the volume level and that kind of a thing at Notre Dame Stadium. I just do. And that just comes from my experience of being in the stadium for so many years. If they start out early, the crowd will be hyped the entire time. If they hit some roadblocks early, it's going to be tough to get them back in the ball game. Because the classic Notre Dame fans be like, oh, here we go again. It's going to be one of those kinds of situations. And so I agree with you. I think a quick start is crucial to this home atmosphere that Notre Dame needs to have.
And I kind of forced the conversation to go into the keys to the game a little bit sooner than I wanted to. That's on me. But it led to the matchup part, which was it's about those guys making individual plays. And that to me is those, and that's kind of 2-into-1, Vince, right? It's Kyron, it's Mayer, it's Lindsey. It's those 3 guys especially have to win their matchups in this game.
Yeah. Yep. That early start wasn't one of my keys, so we're good. We're okay. We're okay. You're good.
It is one of mine.
Just throw yourself in front of the bus. It was mine.
Yeah, which is why it's on my mind so much. So
it's all good, man.
Those are the keys for me that are most important. Do you have any different ones that?
Yeah,
I mean, I have
some
matchups. I know they're going to involve guys a lot bigger than the guys that I brought up.
Actually, okay. So the first 2 that I think Notre Dame, I don't know that I want to say that they're going to have, that I'm confident they're going to have success with, but something I'm going to be keeping my eye on, right? So the first one isn't even on the field. It's Tommy Rees versus Mike Tressel. Mike Tressel is the defensive coordinator for Cincinnati. I am going to, you can say that I'm the ostrich sticking my head in the sand if you want. I get that. But I really do feel like Tommy Rees has not shown his complete hand yet. And I'm not saying you're
going to go there, huh?
I am, because I've seen some stuff in practice that I haven't seen in a game yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you're right.
So I am coming with some empirical evidence. Okay. That's all I'm saying. All right. I think that we are going to see some more of the screen game in this game. I really do think that. I just feel like we have, and you've been calling for it. We've been calling for it, right? Some reverses, some jet sweeps, some more motions, things of that nature. We've been calling for it. I think it's in the playbook. I need to see it. I think we've seen it in the past. So I am confident that we could see it now. And so it's Tommy Rees versus Mike Tressel. That's my first matchup. You're smiling because I just
he just basically took out one of my keys to the game. So thanks a lot, Vince.
You can tell we did not talk to each other before the show, which usually works out really well.
Yeah. Makes it more fun.
All right.
But no, I think that's a great one.
I
think that's a great match. I mean, this is one of those times where Tommy Rees gets an opportunity to show that Brian Kelly was wise to hire a 28-year-old to run his offense. Right? That's, Sean yesterday in the show was talking about how you don't give the keys to Ferrari to a kid. Well, that's kind of what Brian Kelly did.
Yes, he did.
So
he did.
it's like, okay, now don't make me look bad. Right.
Yeah.
Like don't wreck the car. Okay. Let's be good with it. So yeah, I think that's I like that one. I like that one.
My second one here is whoever lines up behind center. Okay. Whatever quarterback it is.
So you're going real big picture with your matchups this week.
I am.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Different, Vince. I mean, it's all good. I like it. I'm just pointing out that, because you had the Desmond Ridder against the whole defense and the crowd. Tommy Rees for Dick Tressel and all, Did I say Dick Tressel?
You did.
It's Mike.
Did. It's Mike.
Yeah, there actually is a Dick Tressel, I believe.
Is he the grandfather?
Yeah, I think he's one of the.
I read a little bit about his lineage and
the elder statesmen. Yes,
because Jim is his uncle, who is at Ohio State.
He is Dick Tressel is Jim Tressel's brother. I always get that right.
All right.
Yeah, I always get that wrong.
Well, that may be Mike's dad. I'm not sure how that works, but either way. So my next one is whoever lines up at quarterback is going to be their decision making versus the Cincinnati secondary, because the Cincinnati secondary is better than the Wisconsin secondary, and there were some issues at times with some really good coverage. And you could even say it's the wide receivers versus the secondary if you wanted to, but I decided to go the quarterback route.
That is, Dick is his dad. Dick Tressel is Mike Tressel's dad.
I wanted to go the quarterback route because everybody's got their opinion on who should be starting, and all the talk is about the quarterback.
Yeah,
not you and me.
No, I'm saying I think you're nailing it, Vince. It's a top 10 matchup. Whose quarterback plays better?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the Notre Dame's quarterback versus the secondary. Don't make any foolish decisions, right? Don't put yourself in position where they are going to be able to make a play, because that could be the difference in this game is a turnover. And so be careful, make good reads. Don't just put it up there and let Cincinnati go pick it off. That's going to be a huge matchup for me.
I'm really curious to see what your keys to the game are going to be. Like, it's going to be really good. If you're coming with this kind of fire on the matchups, I can't wait to see what your keys to the game are.
See, this is the benefit of not being.
I'm not being sarcastic. I'm being serious. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing what your matchups. I
spent some time today, like really.
Are you saying you don't normally show prep? You just kind of wing it. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying I had more
make
time
stuff
to
up as we're
think
going
about
into
it.
the show. Just kind of figure it out. Like, just whatever comes to me.
Whatever.
What's the matchup, Vince, on offense? The Notre Dame offense that I have a feeling our matchup's going to be the same. And you're probably going to go bigger picture than me based on your, the trends of what you've been doing.
It's fair.
Mine's a little bit more focused. But what is the matchup that you're most concerned about?
Look, I know everybody's going to be shocked by this, but it's the guards versus the front, because they're going to be moving, they're going to be slanting, they're going to be sending in guys. Can the guards hold up? Can they communicate the way they need to communicate? Can they pass things off? Can they get to the second level? It's the guards. If the guards can play at a higher level, I think that translates to the rest of the offensive line. So the guards is my matchup. Whoever is coming into their gaps, whoever's coming at the guards, that's the matchup for me that is troubling and will go a long way to the outcome of this game.
Yeah, if the guards play well, Notre Dame's going to win this game, I think.
Yeah.
Mine was more of a little bit more zeroed in than yours, and it was them against the linebackers. Because Cincinnati is as an odd front, they crash those linebackers a lot. Especially like Darian Beavers and I think it's Joel DeBlanco, I think is how you say his last name. But they're real big physical kids. They come downhill a lot, and they will smash guards. And as passive as the Notre Dame guards have been in those instances where they kind of absorb that contact and get knocked back, that's real troubling for me in this particular matchup, Vince. So I'm with you. The guards, because again, what have we said? We try to be consistent here. If you get beat up the middle, you're going to have a hard time being successful against good football teams. It just is. And to me, those guys are that could be the kryptonite to Notre Dame in this game, is to play the guards. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the tackles, have been issues, but the tackles have been more just inconsistent from play to play. There's been some good moments, some bad moments. The guards have been just mostly not good. And that's why it's more troubling to me than the tackles, even more so. So they've got to play well, in my opinion. So that's my troubling matchup.
Keys to the game, Brian. We are here. This is going to be interesting. I feel like I've set the bar very high with my matchup, so I'm a little worried about my keys.
We got one super chat about the keys to the game. Keys to the game for Cincinnati fans. Don't boo the Notre Dame band like Wisconsin fans did during the 1812 overture. Go Irish. Yeah, because they did that, and then what happened the rest of the fourth quarter?
They all jumped around and jumped around in the throat of Wisconsin.
It was
great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Keys to the game, Brian. You want to start on offense or defense?
Let's go defense. Let's kind of stick with the defensive. I mean, that's the side of the ball that's been carrying his team right now. So let's go with them first.
Okay.
My first key, Vince, is you got to disrupt Desmond Ridder early and often. I mean, you cannot, to your point, you cannot let him get comfortable. And this is kind of what you were talking about during your matchup thing, is you can't let him feel comfortable in the pocket where he feels like he can go to his second and third read, where he feels he has time to step into a deep ball, or he sees it drops back and he sees that open lane just open up, part like the Red Sea. You can't let him get comfortable. Indiana early in the game had him completely off his game. And it wasn't until McFadden got booted and they kind of got some momentum that wasn't about the offense that he finally started making some plays. If he starts like that against Notre Dame blows Cincinnati out. I mean, he was throwing balls to Indiana guys. They should have had a couple more interceptions than the one that they did.
Yep.
So that to me is a big key. And that involves, obviously having a great game plan. It involves execution up front, great timing when you do blitz. It involves good coverage that doesn't allow him to just get rid of the ball quickly, because that's the one thing Mike Denbrock's really good at, coming up with a lot of ways to allow Desmond Ridder to quickly get rid of the football.
Sure, I have a lot of
as part of his offense, tons.
Yeah,
and so to me, that is going to be a key. Is get him. Disrupt him, and disrupting him doesn't always mean what you do with your personnel, attacking him. It also means what you do from Marcus Freeman's standpoint schematically.
Mm-hmm.
Make him think he's seeing cover one and then don't play cover one. Make him think you're running zone and then play man. Make him think you're coming and he starts, because especially I've always liked when you start hitting a quarterback a little bit. I like doing smoke blitzes, because once a guy's been hit a few times, he's like, I got to get rid of this ball quickly. And that's when he's more prone to he sees you lining up and the both inside linebackers are coming. He's thinking, I'm throwing this slant quick because I'm getting sick of hitting in the face.
When you can step in front and make
or drop back underneath it, those kind of things. So I confuse him, right? Confuse him. Everybody talks about how we know the Cincinnati's going to have some, they're going to know some weaknesses to what Marcus Freeman does. And I'm like, well, yeah, the opposite is true as well. Marcus Freeman has a better sense of, but here's the difference. Marcus Freeman's defense is working with a bunch of new players. You don't know per se what he does with this kind of talent. Cincinnati's got the same dudes they had last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so they haven't really changed much. I mean, you watch them play, Vince, they haven't changed a whole lot. They're basically the same team on both sides of the ball that they were last year. So I think that does, in fact, give Marcus Freeman greater insight. And he knows, hey, here's when we know in third down, we know that they're vulnerable here. And I think those are areas where Notre Dame can and should have some success in this game.
Well, one of my keys was contain Ritter, right? I mean, that's if you don't do that, it's not going to happen. And I'm not going to repeat everything you just said because you laid it out perfectly. That's the number one person I'm worried about, going up against Notre Dame's defense is Ritter. I mean, he is the guy that you have to keep in control because if you don't, it could be a long day for Notre Dame's defense. So it's got to be Ritter. That has to be the number one key for anybody that's looking at this game, talking about Notre Dame's defense. You have to put a noose, you have to control him, you got to put him on a leash. You got to, whatever the terminology is, so he can't get away from you, right?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
It's going to avoid the noose one.
Well, that was the wrong term.
Right.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I meant leash.
I know what you meant. Yeah. No, it's containing him is key. And there's different. That's what I was saying, though, Vince. It's not just about like pressuring him and hitting him. It's also about doing things schematically to keep him off balance. Because sometimes containing a guy isn't just putting 7 at him. It's also he's back there with uncertainty. He's not sure what to do or where to go or what he's saying. All those things are true. And so I think, what's your second point, Vince? What's your second key?
Mine is just continue the mojo. Like, use what happened in Wisconsin and let it play into the next week. This is where I love the fact they don't have a bye before this big game, right? Because they had a big game. You want to keep that mojo working. And I think that they can do that. And that's going to be a key. If they can come out fired up the way they ended the Wisconsin game, they can roll that fourth quarter into this game, then they're not going to have any problem whatsoever. I mean, just the way they were playing at the end of that game, if they can play like that at the beginning of this game, it's going to be game over.
Last 2 games too. I mean, they've been pretty good at shutting both of those teams down. For me, it's shut down the run. That's key number 2. Make them one-dimensional. If Cincinnati can be balanced in this game, they're going to be harder to they can score 24, 27, 30 points if they're balanced. If you make them one-dimensional, even though that one dimension is their best dimension, look, to me, it's easier to take a run game away than it is to take a pass game away. If a team is decent at both, and they're good at throwing the ball, they're solid at running the ball. I still want to be able to take away that run game.
Oh, sure.
But being able to do it with the box, not having to bring Kyle. So when I say stop the run, stop the run with your box. I should have probably
not at all costs,
more. Right. It's not like bring both your safeties down and blitz your rovers a million times. You've got to be able to beat them with your base defense. That means your 2 inside backers and your 4 defensive linemen. That means your D-line's got to be disruptive. They got to do exactly what they did last week. That was the amazing thing about last week is they did not shut down the run by committing excess numbers to it. They shut down Wisconsin's run because they played disciplined football, but they also just won up front and just beat Wisconsin in the trenches with a bunch of linemen where their biggest guy was 280 pounds. I mean, who? If I'd have told you 2 years ago, Notre Dame's going to play Wisconsin in a couple of years, and Jason Adamiola is going to be the biggest defensive lineman Notre Dame's had, you thought one of 2 things going to happen. Like, A, Driscoll got hit in the head, and he's having concussion problems. Or B, you'd assume that Jason Adamiola put on like 30 pounds, which he hasn't, But that was an impressive thing, and you've got to do it that way again. It has to be with your base. If you have to commit resources to stopping their run game, which I don't think they should have to, if they play their game, that's going to be a key for me. What about number 3?
So number 3 is, I guess it kind of goes along with keep the mojo, but it's block out the noise, but use it. Yeah. And that goes to obviously Ritter's comments and things of that nature. Again, Notre Dame or defense in general, you play with emotion, you play with passion, you play with fire. When you've got bulletin board material and it's geared right towards the defense, it really can stoke a defense. And I love that. And I believe that he opened his mouth at the wrong time. And I think, from what I've heard, it is literally bulletin board material now.
Yes, I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, so
literally, not figuratively speaking, literally.
It's been posted and everybody knows it. And let's go.
Which made me happy because it means they still use paper and stuff. I feel like not everything is on the phone now.
Maybe they texted it to everybody. I don't know, but
it's literally there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is be disciplined. I mean, look, let's be honest. There has not been a team that Notre Dame has played that has done anything against them when Notre Dame doesn't allow them to do something against them. And what I mean by that is the big plays that Florida State had, the big plays that Toledo had, they were all, even against Wisconsin, they were all predicated on, I'd say the one exception. I thought the shovel pass was a really well-designed, well-executed play. Sometimes they just get you.
Yeah.
That was the first time all season I thought, oh, you know what? That was a real good call, real good play. Hats off to the offense on that one. The two big plays from Florida State were Notre Dame guys making mistakes, not being assignment correct, not being, not taking the proper angles, not tackling well. That's all part of being disciplined, tackling well. Same thing with the touchdown that Houston Griffith gave up. It was just not being disciplined, not trusting your technique, not executing. Same thing against the wheel route against Toledo where KJ Wallace goes under instead of going over. That's just not being disciplined,
Right.
We saw the mistake on the blitz where it opens up the long run. I mean, when they've given up big plays, it's been a lack of discipline, and discipline meaning discipline in your training, being assignment correct, being aggressive, taking proper tackling angles, wrapping up and making tackles when you get there. If Notre Dame does that, if they just play sound football, they will shut down Cincinnati because they are exactly do your job. And because they're the better team. And literally none of the four teams they've played have been able to move the ball on Notre Dame when Notre Dame has played sound football. That's just how good this defense is, in my opinion. And I don't think Cincinnati's the team that is going to change that. I think there are some offenses that have enough firepower at certain positions to maybe do that, but this isn't it. If you play your game, be disciplined, be disciplined. It's like that controlled aggression, that controlled rage that we talk about. Focused aggression. I think that's what makes this defense so good. But the problem is if one guy blows his assignment, that can result in big plays. So that to me is my final key.
Well, let's jump over to the other side of the ball. Keys to the game on the offensive side for Notre Dame. What do they have to do to stay in this game and to win the game?
You already kind of took some of my thunder. I'm still bitter about that. My number one key is use your speed.
I love that.
Use your speed. Like, look, yeah, they can't run with you, and they have good athletes. They can't run with you at this. Notre Dame has speed everywhere. Use it, right? So what does that look like? Okay, that means making sure that Chris Tyree has more than 3 flipping touches in this game. Okay, it means making sure that yes, it's good to use Braden Lindsey on go routes and post routes because he's really fast, but use him on other things. Even if those other things are just, hey, we're going to use a jet sweep and reverse because we're going to set something else up. You know what I mean? Off of that. Don't just expect Kevin Austin, who's really only played 4 games as a starting caliber player at Notre Dame and hasn't really played that many meaningful snaps the last 2 years prior to this. Don't ask him to sit there and go into a situation where he's got to go against Ahmad Gardner every single snap as the boundary corner. Move him around. Put him in position to get him ISO'd against Arquan Bush in the slot or Kobe Bryant to the field or, the safeties and things like that. Let Michael Mayer get some matchups against Ahmed Gardner. Here's the thing. Why don't you run at him a couple of those times when you got him into the boundary, right? And let your 250-pound tight end, get physical with him a little bit. You move Braden Lindsey around in different places. Use Avery Davis in different ways. Get Kyron and Chris Tyree involved in the pass game. Use your speed. Use your speed and push the tempo at times. Don't let them play all those line games. Force them to get into real basic calls. Whether that's Notre Dame coming out of a series with a two call situation. 2 calls meaning basically you make 2 calls before you run out on the field. So the players know what the first and second play is. So you run the first play, they know, line up and run the second call that you made. And so you line up and you do it, and then you push the tempo and, you can look for the calls and things like that. Or if it's just normal tempo where you push, look, go, all that type of stuff, keep them on their heels. Use your speed to your advantage. Be aggressive in going after them. And also find ways to be able to do it in a way that doesn't require you to always have to throw the ball 40 yards down the field. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can use your speed on real short stuff, screens, jets, reverses, all that stuff. Use all of it. Use your whole repertoire because you're going to need it. This is a really good defense. It's a really well-coached defense. You need to be able to use your whole repertoire to attack them. So that's my biggest key. And honestly, that is by far my biggest key to the game. What's yours?
So I've got a few here. My first one is you have to establish the run, and I'm not saying that they have to be world beaters in the run. I'm not saying that at all. Notre Dame had 3 yards rushing. It doesn't take much more than that for me to be happy, right? I shouldn't say much more, but you know what I mean. Like they don't have to rush for 250 yards for me to say, they established the run. Good job.
Right.
I think this Cincinnati defense is susceptible to the run. That's what I see on film. I see 5 and 6 yard carries on a regular basis against IU. Okay. That's what I see. And so I think Notre Dame, if it clicks for the offensive line this week, then I think that they can, push forward and do something in the run game. And I think that that'll be really, really important, that they need to establish that run game. My second one is I want to see them put the defensive backs in a bind. I want to see them do some things, whether it's RPOs, whether it's some choice routes, whether it's levels, flood concepts, crossers, all those different things that are going to put the defensive backs in a bind. That's what I want to see. I like Notre Dame's speed on the outside. I do. But this is a good secondary for Cincinnati. I don't know that I want to go one-on-one all the time with those guys. I don't know that it's a matchup you can win, but I don't want that to be the only egg in my basket. Right? I want to put them in a bind, make them make some decisions, make them wrong. Right? That's what you need to do when you're going up against guys that are, of equal or just maybe below talent level. You need to make them wrong. And that's what I want to see in the pass game from Notre Dame. And my last one, again, it goes back to the quarterbacks, and I get that we don't necessarily know who it might be. It's probably going to be Jack Cohn. I know that might make some people upset, but whoever it is, the quarterback needs to bring it this week. I think the quarterback needs to be right. Of course, that means he needs to be upright, and that was one of my keys to last week, and didn't really go that way. But the quarterback needs to be right. Whatever your definition of the quarterback being right is, that's what needs to happen. If it's a pull situation on a zone read, pull it and go. I don't care who the quarterback is.
Get your 6 or 7 yards.
Yes, absolutely. And if it's Tyler Buckner, get your 20. That's fine too, right? In the pass game, if it's an RPO, make the right read, right? If it's, if you're dealing with a flood concept and you're dealing with those crossers, make the right read. Again, make the DBs wrong. So whoever the quarterback is, and let me reiterate the fact that I have faith in whoever it is. If it's 17, if it's 10, if it's 12, whoever it happens to be, I have faith in whoever it is, but they need to bring it. This is a huge matchup, and you're not going to win a lot of huge matchups unless your quarterback brings at least his B game, at least his B to B plus game, right? So that's what I want to see. Those are my 3 keys to the offense.
I think for me, first down success is going to be a big one this week as well. You've got to avoid the third and if you're getting in a lot of 3rd and 6 and longers or 3rd and 7, 8, 9 and longers like they have the last couple games against this defense, you have no chance. No chance to be successful. They've got to be good on first down. That means running the ball. That means being really efficient with the pass game. I would avoid trying to take too many first down shots in this game. And when you do, take them when you're already midfield or further along. Don't take them at your own 20.
Yeah.
Come out like they did after, like the second series after they gave up the first down sack. I thought after that, it was get the ball out quick. It was hit that seam quickly. It was run the wheel route and get the ball out quickly to Joe Wilkins. It was that get the ball out quickly. And I think those are the things that we saw that this offense started to click. When they get that ball out quickly, and sometimes getting the ball out quickly is throwing the ball downfield. And it was with Jack early. It was with Drew on his touchdown drive. When they were doing that, they were successful. You got to be efficient on first down. And then the third one is the offensive line has to hold its own. It's not that hard. They don't have to dominate. They don't have to blow the Cincinnati D-line 8 yards off the ball. They don't have to look like the 2017 O-line or the 2015 O-line or the 2018 O-line or the 2020 offensive line or any other good offensive line Notre Dame has had. They just have, great offensive line Notre Dame's had. 2018 wasn't great. They just have to just do your job, right? It's we say be physical, play hard, and get a body on a body. If you do that, you've got elite running backs that can make people pay. They've done it. Sure. Like literally, you've given them like 5 holes all year, and like 3 of them turned into long touchdowns, right?
Exactly.
It's not that complicated, right? Get a body on a body, assignment correct, move your feet, and then let those running backs do what they got to do. I think those are the keys for me. Those are the keys to victory for me.
And you make a really good point in that if the Notre Dame offensive line can just play better than they did last week, this game may not even be close.
Yeah.
I think that this offense is just they're right there knocking on the door. We've seen it in spurts. We've seen it, right? And so I'm confident. I will say that. Let's see how confident I am when we put my money where my mouth is when we get to predictions. But I think it's about that time, Brian. And before we do, we have a few. We do have some super chats.
And there's something I wanted to kind of get into because we're talking about keys to the game. There's a lot of people. Yes. There's somebody, Drew Stephen St. Blaise, who, by the way, said that he recently lost a good friend and his father recently, Drew. So and that being here helps them get through it, and we appreciate that we can kind of take your mind off of that stuff. But we'll definitely be praying for you and thinking about you and your family and we've had a lot of people in our community have loss like that. And so I hope that you all can kind of, if you have had that loss, reach out to each other and help get each other through these times. So, and we'll certainly keep you in our prayers, which, as you know, for Vince and I, is something that means a lot to us.
You bet.
So the other thing that people have talked about is they talk, well, we don't talk about the rain. Number one, the weather is already kind of changing. It was a high percentage chance of rain, and then it was down to 40. Now it's down to 25.
Yep.
The other part of it, too, is it wasn't going to be a heavy rain. It was like scattered showers. That doesn't really affect football games on field turf unless you have a quarterback with really tiny hands, which was a problem for me when I was a quarterback. But it doesn't really affect the game that much. The only thing that affects games like that, Drew, is when it's a windy rain or a hard, heavy rain that's continuous.
Yeah.
It's
like
not
it was at Michigan or North Carolina State.
Yes, exactly. Or Clemson. But even the Clemson game, I mean, they threw the ball well in the second half.
Right.
But the thing about the Clemson game, it was it wasn't real windy. It was coming straight down. But just a normal Saturday South Bend rain, scattered showers doesn't really affect the game a ton. It would if it was still the old field, if it was still grass. But field turf absorbs that stuff really well, and it gets dry a lot quicker than it does with a natural field. So that's why we haven't really talked about it. Because, and again, I'm looking at it now, Vince. The winds are southeast 8 miles an hour. 8 mile an hour winds don't really affect football games in stadiums.
No.
So that's honestly why we haven't talked about it, because it as of the weather right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be really an issue.
It's going to be terrible on Sunday. So if you're sticking around, you got
outdoor plans on Sunday. Unless that storm kind of comes a little faster, right? So anyway, so that's why we haven't really brought it up. I don't really think it's going to be. And again, Notre Dame's quarterbacks are from New York and Connecticut, and Jack Cohn spent his last 4 years playing in Wisconsin.
Right.
They know how to play in bad weather. Yeah. Right. Cold and windy, but that's the thing too. The worst is when it's cold and wet, because your hands really get shriveled.
It's not going to be cold.
It's going to be in the 70s. Right. Yeah, so I just 70s. I don't think the rain is really going to have an impact on this game.
Yeah, I agree. We got a couple more super chats, Brian, I want to get to before we close things out, since I have an extended pass today.
Yes, I like this.
Matt Paisley, thanks, Matt, for the super chat. He says, per Brian Kelly, Cohn is ahead of schedule, splitting with Drew 50-50 reps. Buckner getting his usual reps. Carmody, lots of work, will play. Heinisch is out. So
interesting. That would be from Brian Kelly's press conference that he just finished up with. That was happening while we were.
Was he late today, Brian? Because isn't it normally at noon, or is that
noonish? Yeah.
Okay, noonish. Yeah. Fair
so
enough.
I'm looking up some people to see if that was actually reported.
Not that we don't trust you, Matt.
No, I definitely do. Just trying to see. So far, I haven't seen anybody that's said anything about it. So it'd be interesting. But yeah, Heinisch being out, that concerns me a little bit, because let me see here.
This is where live shows
are. Here's an interesting one. So Brian, this is from Pete Sampson. He says Brian Kelly says left tackle Blake Fisher's injury is usually season ending. Notes there's no reason to get hopes up that Fisher will be back during the regular season.
Whoa, now that's
completely different than what they said when he first got hurt. But I did say a couple weeks ago that I've heard that it may be a little longer than they thought.
Wow.
That is very disappointing.
Yeah.
And Pete also reported that Kurt Hinish is out this week. Said he will be ready for Virginia Tech. So that's interesting. So,
He
and
must not
now
have
as
gotten
far as
out
what
of
he said about
protocol.
quarterback, I don't put a lot into what Brian Kelly says about that, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. That's not a shot, because why would you give them
exactly
what you
I'm
need
going to
to
make
know?
you prepare for everybody on my
All of them.
roster.
Right.
at
You may
quarterback.
think that Drew, I mean, if Jack Cohn can't go right now and you know he can't go, why do you need to tell Cincinnati that? They don't need to know that.
Exactly.
So I have no issue with that. So that's interesting. Very interesting. So Hinish is out, which again, as we said before, doesn't really change a whole lot because that's just the kind of depth that Notre Dame has right now. But the Blake Fisher news is obviously disappointing.
No
Very
doubt.
disappointing.
No
So
doubt, especially
not
with
having
the way
him.
things have been going.
Yeah.
So
not having, and again, he's not a guy that's going to be a fifth. It's not like, oh, he gets an extra year. Blake Fisher's not going to be a 5-year guy.
No,
unless he has further injuries.
No. Let's roll through some of these.
Thank you for the
chats
super chat too, by the way, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Chill 21777. Thank you for the super chat. He's got his prediction here: Notre Dame 28, Cincinnati 22.
Very similar to what one of us has.
I like that a lot.
I always thought it was Chili. I don't know why I was calling him Chili in the past.
I almost did, and then I had a chance to look at it a little bit.
My apologies, Chill. My apologies.
Let's see. Tyler Reese with a super chat. Thanks, Tyler. Or it could be Tiller. I'm going to go Tyler. Anyway, the disrespect from Cincinnati should alone provide the aggression. Home game and still an underdog to an FCS team. Disrespect. Could not agree more.
Yeah, FBS team, but yes, I agree with you. I
could not.
That's what made that's what made the trash. It's like, do you really want to piss Notre Dame off? I mean, I think I can't remember if I talked about this on the radio show or if I talked about it on our show, but the one knock I've had on Notre Dame over the years is that they sometimes don't always match the other team's emotion the way that you should in a big game. Right? Because it's that whole business-like, every game's the same. And I hate that because not every game's the same. And when the other team looks at this as a big game, I mean, I don't care if Toledo does, but when it's 10 versus 10, top 10 versus top 10, then you need to be willing to embrace that moment. Let them thrive. And not in a pressure way, but like, hey, this is what you come to Notre Dame for, baby.
Yeah.
If there was any chance of that happening this week, that is now gone. Notre Dame is not going to. I mean, you've given them the fuel they need to be motivated to play this game. You're gonna talk trash about us in our house. Like, do you not know we've won 26 straight games here, right? And the disrespect of them being underdogs at home to a group of 5 team.
That's all they really should have needed.
Oh man,
but they've just add fuel to the fire, and it's just it's silly talk, man.
Yeah.
All right, AST 12321. Has a super chat. Thanks, AST12321. Really appreciate it. He says, anything encouraging about the line coming out of practice, or are we mostly working with what we've had the past 4 weeks?
The line doesn't play that bad in practice because they're going against scout team guys. So look, and it won't matter. Honestly, if I did hear something, and I haven't heard anything different than what we hear every week.
Yeah.
If I did hear something different, honestly, I would not care. Because it doesn't matter. I want to see
at
what
this point.
We've
seen what 9 offensive linemen. Like I need to see them play well before I worry about anything else.
Right. And you need Kane Madden to play well this game. You need Jarrett Patterson to play well. You need Josh Lugg to play well, and then whoever else is playing on the left side needs to play well.
Right.
I still say I think it's a mistake for them not to get Rocco Spindler involved. I agree.
What
as bad as your left guards have been, could he be worse? No.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think he can.
Yeah,
I don't think he can.
Completely agree.
But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that very, very much.
It is now that time, Brian. It's put up or shut up time. We've got our predictions coming in. For me, this is going to sound similar to, I think, my rationale last week when it comes to predictions. But I have an immense amount of faith in the defense. And they proved me to be prophetic last week. I will give them all the credit because, they were the ones doing the work. But I had faith in them last week. I will have faith in them moving forward in the defense, that they are going to come to play and that they are going to, make things happen on the defensive side of the ball. I love this defense. And so I'm not prepared to give a big number to any offense that they're going to play. And I was tempted to go a little bigger on the offense. I'm still hedging my bets a little bit until they can show me a little bit of consistency, scoring offensively. Look, they put up 41, but it wasn't from the offense. So,
Offense put up like what, 20?
yeah. So I'm not quite prepared to go big for the offense just yet, but I think that there's some matchups, and we talked about them, that they can exploit on their offensive side of the ball. And if they can do some of the things that I'm hoping Tommy Rees does, and that Notre Dame can do, and the defense just plays the way they did last week. They don't even have to play as well as they did last week. If they just play their game next week or this week, I 24 might be big for Cincinnati. That might be too many. That really it might be. I think maybe I'm accounting for maybe like a pick 6 or something for Cincinnati to get up to that point, to be perfectly honest with you. So I have 28-24 Notre Dame winning. I have it as a close game. I just don't see this being a blowout in either direction. So that's my score, Brian. I will let you explain yours.
Can I ask you a question first on yours?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see it being a legitimate close game throughout the game, or do you see it like Notre Dame takes a 28-17 lead and Cincinnati scores late? Or do you see this being a 4-quarter back and forth affair that Notre Dame wins by 4?
That's a really good question. I look at this game, and the way I go about games is, when I'm watching it, do I worry that Notre Dame is going to lose? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm going to have that feeling, right? So the final score may be close, but I don't, like Wisconsin, I didn't going to lose. Yeah, 100%. But I never had the feeling that Notre Dame was going to lose. And I really get that emotion, that feeling about this game. I don't think Notre Dame is we're going to get the feeling throughout the game that Notre Dame is going to lose. And so I guess from your question, I think that Notre Dame will have a lead. And I mean, Wisconsin. I think that Notre Dame is going to lose. That's how I feel like this is going to go.
I see this as a game that we start to see Notre Dame start to click a little bit more. And you know what? The reason, honestly, Vince, it wasn't until I went back and broke down the Wisconsin game again that I started to feel like I was going to go and score like this. When I originally kind of kicked the week off, I was like, okay, it's going to be another close one. But when I look at what Notre Dame started to do in the fourth quarter, after Wisconsin took that lead, and I'm not just talking about the defense and pick sixes, I'm talking about the special teams making plays. I'm talking about the offense started to get a little bit of a, and they're playing a little bit more physical up front,
Rhythm.
Yeah. And it's not about Drew Pine. I mean, that's how people are going to spin it. But we saw a couple times during that game where they started to get a little hot and they started to move people a little bit off the ball and they started playing a little bit harder, where you're like, okay, they started getting the ball out quickly. And that was even the first field goal drive that they had. If they would have attacked in the red zone like they attacked getting to the red zone, that's 7-0 or 7. They take a 7-3 lead right there. So I just feel like it starts to click a little bit this game. I also think that Cincinnati will move the ball a little bit early, but I think the Notre Dame defense is going to hold them to field goals, and the Notre Dame offense is going to pull it away. Where I disagree with you, Vince, is I think Notre Dame can blow Cincinnati out. I just don't think they're there yet.
Okay.
I don't think that their offensive line is going to play to the degree that would allow them to blow Cincinnati out. I think Cincinnati's a good football team. I think they're more of a top 20-ish caliber team than they are a top 10 caliber team, in my opinion. And that's kind of why I have this as again, it'll be a battle. I think it's a game like I could see it like, Cincinnati, Notre Dame's up 20-9 and Cincinnati scores to make it 20-16 and Notre Dame responds with a touchdown. But I see it being a competitive game, but one that Notre Dame is clearly the better team.
Yes.
That's how I see it playing out.
I like that comment there. I think it'll be a competitive game, but Notre Dame's the better team, and they show it with the final score. But yeah, it's just, I'm never going to get that feeling that Notre Dame's it will feel like they're in control most of the time. And I think that's the biggest thing.
So that's our score predictions. So there's a little bit of news I wanted to announce. I just saw that Sam Spiegelman, who covers he's very tight end in recruiting in Louisiana and Texas.
Okay.
Just put out on Twitter that Walker Howard, a 5-star quarterback in the 2022 class, is visiting Notre Dame this weekend. He's committed to LSU. Yep, he's a 5-star quarterback, according to Rivals. I believe 247 also has him as a 5-star quarterback. I'm going to look that up now. But he is apparently, according to Sam, he has been in contact with Tommy Rees for a while. This is very interesting.
I thought they were set on quarterback with Angeli.
That's what I thought too. He is ranked as the number 23 player in the country in the composite rankings. He is from Louisiana. He is, as I said, committed to LSU. He has not made any fall visits this season to any other schools. So this is very interesting. I'm again, that's coming from Sam Spiegelman, who covers Louisiana and Texas for Rivals. So I thought that was very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So we're getting some chats out, some predictions out there. Is any Notre Dame fans picked Cincinnati yet?
Not that I have seen.
Okay.
And I'm kind of rolling through, but a lot of them have been by I've seen a lot of 31-21s. There, Nathan Lytle, he's got that. I've seen a lot of those.
Nathan was one of the guys that showed up at the to the tailgate against Purdue.
Oh, here we go. Kenny Moore, to beat Notre Dame, you have to be able to slow down our passing game, and Cincinnati has that ability. 21-17, Cincinnati.
I'd be a little surprised if Cincinnati scored 3 touchdowns against Notre Dame.
That's a lot.
That would surprise me a lot. It really would.
Yeah, I agree. That's the only one I've seen so far.
Kenny's always really fair though and objective. So I see where he's coming from, but I just feel like this is part of my prediction too in response to Kenny is I think that the line does play a little bit better this week. And I feel they're going to be ready for this game. I do. And especially with Cincinnati running. I mean, last week was kind of like a love fest all week. Paul Chryst, Notre Dame's so good, and we respect them. And Wisconsin players handling like you'd expect them to handle it. We're focused on ourselves. There's, and then Cincinnati kind of comes out, and it's like the little mouthy,
They're just like beating their chest, know. I mean,
it's like, is that for you or is that for Notre Dame? Like, I'm trying to figure out what you're doing. Is it you're just trying to convince yourself that you can actually beat Notre Dame?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
are you just that confident in yourselves? Like,
hey, I'm glad you're confident. I'm also glad you said what you said.
Yes, no,
I'll just keep it at that.
Yes. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. So that's it. I'm going through here just to see if there's any other interesting comments. There's a lot of them, but see if there's anything else that we maybe want to bring up and discuss before.
I do want to bring something up. Somebody asked if people think that Chris Tyree and Kyron Williams are going to declare for the draft. Chris Tyree can't declare for the draft after this year.
He's only a sophomore.
He's only a sophomore. So I can't remember who said it. I think I lost that comment a long time ago. But I wanted to throw that out there. So
I do think Kyron would, but again, he's going to have to start doing he's going to have to start producing at some point. That makes that part very, very interesting. Alex Pulsifer said, I think it was Alex who asked that question about.
Was it? Okay.
It says, if it does rain, Lord help us, won't be fun having to rely on our O-line for a run game in the rain. And then Chad Williams also made a comment, because I want to discuss this. Chad Williams made a comment about Notre Dame. Here it goes. I hope it doesn't rain too much. BK is not a good bad weather coach. Rain doesn't equal bad weather. Notre Dame's had plenty of games where they've been successful and won convincingly where it rained. What made Michigan bad and NC State and Clemson bad is it wasn't raining.
It was sideways rain.
It was like basically like a monsoon. It was like a really bad storm. We're not supposed to be getting that. It's just going to be kind of like normal, Saturday afternoon rain. It's not supposed to dump. It's not supposed to be heavy as far. Maybe you've seen something different, Vince, and it's not even guaranteed that it's going to rain. Rain doesn't make for bad weather. I could kind of go through and try to find some games here in recent history to point that out off the top of my head, but I know there's been games where it has rained in recent years and Notre Dame has been fine. Literally North Carolina was a hurricane. I've said this before, but I thought we were going to die. I'm not joking, because like the booth was kind of shaking, but I'm looking over and I see the light posts going like this during the game, like those big giant light posts.
Yeah.
I'm hearing flash flood sirens going off in the community, like in the background. And I'm thinking,
play ball.
What the heck are we freaking doing? What kicked me off most about that? When I walked out of my hotel room the next morning to go to the airport, it's freaking sunny, but ESPN wouldn't change the game to Sunday. That's who made that decision, was ESPN.
I remember that.
But and I was at the Clemson game. And I was at the Michigan game. That's not the kind of rain they're calling for this weekend.
Right. It's going to be
So
scattered, and it's not even going to. Again, the percentage just keeps going down and down and
Right.
down. They're pushing it all to
Right.
Sunday at this point. So,
right.
it depends on whether you trust the weatherman or not. But I really don't think it's going to be the kind of rain that anybody needs to worry about. We'll see.
Right.
I'm not a trained meteorologist either,
Right.
but based on what I'm seeing, I'm not that worried.
Yeah, I'm not either. I just don't see it being the issue that some people and look, they've had some games they one can just in the rain. It just in North Carolina 2017, but they stunk. So it doesn't really count. North Carolina was pretty bad in 2017.
I want to respond to this. Eric, thanks for the comment, my man. He says, you guys keep saying sweeps and screens. Isn't Cincinnati fast? We should have done that against Wisconsin. They're fast, but they also pin their ears back and they come. And when you do that, that's when screens are effective.
USC was fast in 2019, and Notre Dame busted a reverse for 51-yard touchdown.
Exactly.
That's kind of the point. It's you're doing it in a way where it kind of does twofold. Number one is you're using their aggressiveness against them, like you said, Vince, especially man teams. Because if you run it in a way where like you take your backside receiver and you just shoot him on a 45-degree angle vertically to take that boundary corner with them, you're looking to take advantage of it. So it's not like if Cincinnati was fast, but they just sat back in like a 3-3-5 defense and played, we're going to keep everything in front of us.
Then you're
not going to run. Yeah. Well, you may run screen. I think you can still run screens, but you're not running reverses. You're not running jet sweeps because they're going to pursue to the ball. If Cincinnati does a thing where they crash their two inside linebackers and you're running the jet sweep, man, you got them, right? You just got to make your perimeter blocks because they've taken those backers that would pursue have taken themselves out of the play, and they're a heavy inside run blitz team or run stunt team. So it's not just saying, well, they're fast, you can't do this. You have to break it down. Like I'll give you a perfect example. You've got to take every single team and how they play kind of individually and not look at, well, just because they do this. So, well, I don't know if I've told the story before, but when I was at Duquesne in 2003, we were playing Robert Morris, whose head coach at the time was the late Joe Walton. Vince, if you remember him, he coached for the Steelers and the Jets. But they were a cover 2 team. Cover 2 is 2 deep safeties and 5 underneath, and the safeties tend to play off, and they're going to take away half the field. Well, our best pass play was a double post concept. So we ran the inside guy would run like sort of a hard post, and then the outside guy would kind of take the top off post. Well, against cover 2, that's not a great concept because the inside backers kind of get up underneath the inside post, and then the safeties, in theory, take away the deep post. And so my head coach and I, Greg Gattuso, argued all week about whether or not we could run Dolphins against this defense. And I said we could. And he said, you can't run Dolphins against cover 2. But the thing is their cover 2, Vince, was their safety. They had a kid to transfer from Pitt. And I think it was Robert Butler, I think is his name. But he would sit in flat foot because he was so athletic that he could flat foot and then open and run, right? And so he would flat foot in cover 2. Well, the receiver, our outside receiver, ran a 4.43, right? That's what he ran, not what we timed him as. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles timed him at, which is why they signed him, when he after his career was over. And so I said, Coach, we can get Yarden outside and we can beat him a double post. And we argued about it all week. And then we got into a game and I'm watching him and he's freaking sitting there flat footing again in cover 2. So I said, Coach, run Dolphins. And they were coming. We hadn't run it all game. We argued about it all game. And we were up 20, I think 20-0. They were coming back, battling back, and they got back. It was like a 23-20 game or something like that. And I said, Coach, run Dolphins now. We were at our own 20-yard line, and he basically said to me in some words that I can't use because I don't want this to no longer be kid friendly, that there would be bodily harm with kitchen utensils into my eye, and I would be fired. It didn't work. And I said, just run it. And so we ran it, and it was 80 yards later, Yarden's running into the end zone, and we put him away, right? You have to take it individually of what they do, not just theoretically this equals this. Theoretically, a fast team may be able to play that. An aggressive cover 1 fast team, you have to use those things against them. Run off and run screens or things like that. If Ahmed Gardner's going to play physical, then you run a go route and then you run like a wheel route behind it, and then so I'm trying to so you've got, let's say you've got Kevin Austin in the boundary and you run him off. You run off Gardner, okay? And then what you do is you take your running back into the boundary and you run him on a wheel route, okay? So he kind of trails. So you run Gardner off. So then you've put that linebacker in a bind where if he's going to run with that wheel, then you bring like Lindsey or you bring your tight end on a really hard drive route underneath that. So if that linebacker stays on the drive route, then you bang that wheel route, and then they've got that safety coming from depth to try to cover Chris Tyree. So again, you're using their aggressiveness against them with your play design, right? But you're using your speed to attack their speed. And that's the whole point. And that's what we believe Notre Dame can do if schemed correctly. You got to scheme it right.
Yeah.
You just run out and just run something that's going to run right into what they do. So that's why I would say to do that. So, but Vince, that's going to be it for today's show. I want to thank everyone for being here. Remember, tomorrow we will be back. We'll have our Friday free for all.
Oh, yeah.
Fortunately, Vince won't be able to be there for the whole day tomorrow. Yet tomorrow would have been a great day for you.
I know.
Off, because then we could have had a much longer mailbag. But Vince, thanks for being with me today. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Had a great crowd in here today. Lots of predictions. Back tomorrow with our Friday free for all. We will have a post-game show on Saturday night after the game. And, of course, on Sunday, we have our Upon Further review. So everybody have a great, safe rest of your day. For everyone traveling this tonight and tomorrow, Double D, I know you're going to be traveling tonight. Travel safe. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. And we will talk to you again very, very soon.